Starting off with the worst at number 8, Suicide Squad. Now, I'll never forget how truly pumped I was to see Suicide Squad back in 2016 because I remember being so enamored with the trailers because how the movie just looked so weird yet so unique because it was supposed to be a huge blockbuster hit. But instead, it was just the pure opposite as the film was just nothing but a shoddy clusterfuck of a film. Whether if it comes to the sloppy direction of the movie, to the inconsistent tone, the pacing was just horrendous. Some of the characters are just so horribly utilized, especially when it came to Jared Leto's Joker, who was just barely in the film, which was a huge sin. And the film just had an extremely crappy villain in Cara Delevingne's Enchantress. Enchantress honestly had no business being in the film at all because if you're a comic book fan like me, you should know that magic is probably like one of the worst things you could ever put in a superhero movie. And while sure Suicide Squad has a few redeeming qualities to it, El Diablo's character arc was amazing, Viola Davis was excellent as Amanda Waller, and most importantly, Margot Robbie's incredible performance as Harley Quinn because she played the character so damn good to the point where she comes across as the live action version of the character from the comic books. But other than that, that's just about it. Hell, even the soundtrack was 1,000 times better than the movie, and the fact that the soundtrack alone was better than the entire film, that's definitely saying something. This movie just really annoys the hell out of me, so let's just go on to something that's a little more interesting to talk about. Coming at number 7, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yet again, another DC movie in 2016 that massively disappointed me. Now, much like Suicide Squad, I was super hyped to see this film, paid very good money to see it because you have Batman and Superman, two of the most iconic and most popular superheroes of all time. And it was such a big deal because they were finally being united to the big screen. And the result of that was just a huge facepalm to the forehead. Batman v Superman was just all over the place because with the convoluted story, everything just felt so incredibly rushed without taking its time because once you do that, that's how you know the movie is gonna suck. And let's not forget that the villains in this movie are just so pitiful. You have Jesse Eisenberg, who was so abysmal as Lex Luthor. He's nothing like the character, and honestly, he would have been a better fit as the Riddler. And you have Doomsday, who pretty much just got butchered into this film just to kill Superman, which was just a huge waste to his character, even though he eventually comes back in Justice League, which was no surprise. But on the bright side, this movie looks visually amazing. The special effects look incredible. Wonder Woman making her first ever on-screen appearance on a movie was just absolutely gratifying to see because I remember movie critics, including myself, were just losing our damn minds. And I absolutely loved the action sequences in this film because they were so well choreographed and fast paced. Whether if it came to that badass warehouse sequence with Batman just kicking ass left and right, and even the battle scene between him and Superman as well. But even with that, it couldn't save this film from being bad because then we have really stupid moments like this.
We're letting him kill Martha.
Why did you say that name?
Find him. Save Martha.
Please, stop!
Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name! It's his mother's name.
Martha? Really? Martha? So just because both of their mom's name is Martha, they just automatically become friends like that? Like, what? If I'm being honest, it feels like this movie was just made to set up Justice League because you can tell there's so many references and how they were planting very small seeds in this film just to set it all up. And it seems like it was just too focused on doing that rather than just being a compelling and a cohesive story. And with all that is the main reason why Batman v Superman really just failed to live up to the hype. Coming in at number 6, Justice League. As a kid growing up, I've always wanted to see a live-action Justice League movie, and it finally happened in 2017. And did it work? Not exactly. Now, in all fairness, I know this movie was going through a lot of production issues while filming due to the fact that Zack Snyder had to step down as director because of the tragic death of his daughter who committed suicide. So with that, he would be replaced by the man who directed the first two Avengers movies, Joss Whedon, to reshape the whole movie. Which sounds like a good idea on paper, but when you have two people who have different perspectives of how they make a movie, it's just not really gonna fit. But I will say, some of the things from this film are very fun and enjoyable. The visuals look amazing. I really like how the tone is just very consistent throughout the entire film. And you also have an amazing cast of actors. But other than that, the entire movie feels so rushed due to the 2-hour runtime. The character developments felt so poor because of the fact that some of the characters just didn't feel so fleshed out. And you also had a very tedious and a very generic villain in Steppenwolf, whom they tried so hard to make him very compelling, but it just does not work at all. I really wanted to love Justice League, and while I have no problem rewatching it here and there, but overall, the movie just feels like a bootleg version of the Avengers, and they could have done so much better. But with the Snyder Cut finally being released next year, let's just cross our fingers and just hope to God that it's way better than the theatrical version. Coming at number 5, Aquaman. Now, Aquaman is a film in the DCU that I'm very split on. I think it's fun to watch, but I just have very mixed feelings about it. There are some things that I do like about it. I love the bright color visuals, the costumes look amazing, the action scenes were very good, and you also have some very stellar performances. You have Jason Momoa playing Aquaman, who definitely was the perfect actor to play the role because the way he brings so much charisma. You also have Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman, and even Patrick Wilson as well. That being said, I feel like the movie just brutally suffers due to the writing because the script for this movie was just not that good at all. Some of the things just felt a little too repetitive, especially going way too overboard with the explosions. And the movie seems like it was just taking ideas from other movies and just cramming it into one without being its own identity, and that's just kind of a shame. Aquaman is no by means bad at all. It's not even great either. It's just a fine movie that should have been great. Coming at number 4, Birds of Prey. Now, I remember how I had such a huge blast watching Birds of Prey the first time. I saw it twice in theaters, and I thought it was far superior to Suicide Squad, as it really cleansed the palate from how bad it was. Margot Robbie was still amazing as Harley Quinn. She's just as great as she was in Suicide Squad. Director Cathy Yan did a very superb job of exploring the potential in Harley Quinn while expanding her character. I really loved the visual style of the movie, especially the way how it maintained the wackiness and the goofiness. And I thought that Ewan McGregor made a very stellar villain in Black Mask, even though I just wish he was a little bit more accurate from the character from the comics. However, the more I've rewatched it, the flaws have really started to show a lot more. Some of the aspects of the film just came across to be a little feminist. The screenplay was just a little bit iffy. Some, if not most, of the supporting characters just felt a little forgettable besides Black Canary and Renee Montoya, played by Rosie Perez. And I also hated the way how they killed off Black Mask because the way that he just dies like a complete idiot, and that just really left a foul taste in my mouth. But despite my problems with the film, I still enjoy the hell out of Birds of Prey, so I definitely feel like it's something worth revisiting. Coming at number 3, Man of Steel. I definitely think that Man of Steel has to be one of the most underappreciated superhero movies of all time. Although, I'm not gonna lie, I used to be one of these people who hated this film because the way how this movie took a really different direction of Superman, as it just completely abandoned the comic book adaptations and what Superman is traditionally known for. But after rewatching it numerous times for the past few years, I realized it's not as bad as everybody says it is. As a matter of fact, I think it's way better than most people give it credit for. Despite the different direction, I really admired the way how Zack Snyder dug deep into Superman's origin story by analyzing his childhood and the way how he struggles to figure out who he is while humanizing both Clark Kent and Superman. The entire movie looks visually gratifying. Hans Zimmer's score was absolutely phenomenal, and you also have a wonderful cast of actors from Russell Crowe, Diane Lane, Lawrence Fishburne, Michael Shannon, Amy Adams, and especially Henry Cavill's engaging performance as Superman. He definitely was the perfect choice to play the role, as he really comes across as a modern day version of Superman. While some of the aspects of this film I'm still very critical about, but regardless, I definitely think Man of Steel is a really good movie, and I feel like people should give this a lot more credit, considering the fact that this was the one that kickstarted the entire DCEU. Coming at number 2, Shazam. Out of all the DCEU movies, Shazam was the one that really took me by surprise because I kind of expected this film to be very generic and just very standard. But after watching it for the first time, I was so blown away of how great it is due to its unique theme. This movie felt like a breath of fresh air because the way how it feels so distinct from any other superhero movies to the genre, because the way how it has its own story. It's creative, it's charming, it has great humor, and it also has a heartwarming story to it that has a classic 80s vibe. Zachary Levi and Asher Angel absolutely killed it as both the younger and older version of Billy Batson, especially the way how the character has such an amazing arc. And it's really good to see how the character transitions from being very selfish to learning how to be a responsible person. The only complaints I had was the villain played by Mark Strong, who was just very tedious, and the third act battle just felt like it went on for a little too long. But with that being said, Shazam was such a great movie that really knows what it wants to be, and with the second movie coming out, I'm really looking forward to where things go from here. And number 1, Wonder Woman. Now here we have the crown jewel of the DCEU, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was a film that the DCEU really needed to help them get back on track, especially coming off some huge stinkers with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. Because if this film failed, then I think the entire DCEU would have gone down the drain. And I remember just praying and just crossing my fingers, just hoping that this movie did not suck. And I remember just walking out of the theaters with a huge smile on my face and just taking a huge deep breath because Wonder Woman was just absolutely brilliant. Director Patty Jenkins did such an incredible job of crafting a film that had a very standard yet very great fish out of water story that was very compelling, along with having such an awe-inspiring direction because it was such a huge achievement for how it superbly highlights female empowerment. Gal Gadot's performance as Wonder Woman was just absolutely flawless because the way she brings so much depth, so much charm, and so much heart to the role. And her chemistry with Steve Trevor, played by Chris Pine, was just absolutely magical because the way how it felt so genuine and so believable, and it just doesn't feel forced at all. It was close to being a perfect movie. That was until the third act, because that's where the film kind of gets a little bit clunky, especially with the villain plot twist with Ares played by British actor David Thewlis. Well, I thought it was a great idea, but I feel like they should have been better executed. But regardless of that, Wonder Woman to me is still the best DCEU movie to date. And while it may have been 3 years since its release, it still remains one of the most important films, not just to the DCEU, not just to DC movies, but also to the superhero genre as well. And for that is why it earns my #1 spot on the list. So, what do y'all think? Do you guys massively disagree? If so, let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for weekly videos. I'm your boy Micah J, and peace.